Africa released first quarter GDP figures that showed that South Africa's economy shrunk by a shock 2.2%. And this was much worse than had been expected, with most economists forecasting a negative 0.5% quarter on quarter, following declines in manufacturing, mining and retail sales. What was a major surprise was the 24% fall in agriculture. Well, to tell us about this sector and what it might mean for our economy going forward is the Chief Economist at AgriSA Hamlet Hlomendlini. Thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Peter, for having me.
All right, so you AgriSA, you watch the agricultural space. Did this 24% take you by surprise?
Certainly it has. We were expecting a contraction of around 11%, but it was a surprise yesterday when we saw a big number of 24%, which is double what we expected. So yes, it is a surprise. But in the terms of the sector's contribution to the GDP, it's not a surprise at all.
All right, so explain it to us. Was it the drought? What did this damage to agriculture?
Of course, the drought, Peter. Most of the winter crops, for example, the wheat, canola, and barley, are grown mostly in the Western Cape, and some summer fruits as well, like your stone fruits, grapes, are also grown in the Western Cape, most of them. And the harvesting time of those crops usually runs between November and March. And the numbers that we have seen yesterday are the numbers that have taken into account those production harvests. And what we have seen is that the drought that we experience in the Western Cape and Northern Cape and parts of the Eastern Cape, we all downplayed it in terms of its impact to the sector, especially down in the Western Cape.
All right, so, we kind of have an idea. We don't wait until right at the end to figure out how much we've planted, how much we're likely to put on our bales and in our trucks and send out. So why did this take us by surprise? Was there a problem in collecting the data, or how is it that we missed the mark here?
Well, I think what has happened is that, like I said earlier, we downplayed, from an economic analysis point of view, what the impact of drought would be. And we were hoping that maybe in provinces like the Eastern Cape, which has not been hard hit by the drought as much as the Western Cape has, and other provinces like your KwaZulu-Natal, Northwest, Gauteng, Mpumalanga would compensate for that. But it seems like that did not happen. But you must remember, Peter, that it's also natural to get it wrong sometime, especially if you consider the fact that most of the agricultural production in South Africa comes from the Western Cape, and the Western Cape has been really hard hit by the drought. Okay, so
we, as economists, are already revising GDP for the rest of this year, and I just wonder, agriculture is what, about 2% of the GDP output, so this huge number for agriculture had a significant effect on the overall picture in the end, didn't it? Even though perhaps 2% doesn't seem like a lot, it certainly is significant.
Of course, Peter, but I just want to take you back last year, Brad. You saw the numbers that came out at the end of last year. The agricultural sector performed very well. For two executive quarter, the third quarter and the fourth quarter, South Africa was the best performing sector, and it helped the economy to keep it afloat last year, and ultimately resulted or contributed significantly to the 1.3 growth that we experienced as the whole economy last year. So what you see happening now, to your point about the 2% that it contributes to the GDP year on year, it's actually 2.5 year on year. You got to remember that agriculture, mostly what you see is coming from the primary sector, and the 2.5% does not underplay the importance of the sector into the economy, because first of all, it provides a lot of jobs for rural people and people that are not very much skilled in the rural areas. And another thing is that the contribution of agriculture to the GDP, it's not only the primary agriculture, it goes across the value chain. And if you look at value chain as a whole, looking into the secondary sector as well, you notice that it's about 12% that the whole value chain of agriculture contributes into the economy.
Well, it's not all doom and gloom, I guess, because, you know, whilst the Q1 is down 2.2%, when we compare Q1 this year and Q1 last year, we've actually made some progress. So would you say that we can be optimistic about the outlook going forward, even though we might have to sort of pull back our expectations a little bit?
Certainly, there is an optimistic kind of like feeling from the agriculture sector. Remember, yes, what we're experiencing now, it's actually a very big fall from the sector. However, we expected some fall, you know. However, we do expect that the sector will recover. It might not be in the second quarter, but in the third quarter. Because remember, the harvesting period, it runs up until, if you consider other entities, you know, or other crop production, up until around May. So there are numbers that are not included in this, in the figures that came up yesterday. So we will see that even in the second quarter, the agricultural sector might contract a bit, but it will not be as much as it is now. But going forward, we know that, especially with the fact that the economy itself as a whole, it is recovering. We've seen that the confidence level or levels are rising in South Africa at the moment, and I guess that is coming at the backdrop of Cyril Ramaphosa's election as the president of South Africa. And there is a bit of optimism that is coming from the investors out there, and that is going to help.
You know what, we've run out of time, but in 10 seconds, if you can answer this, what effect will this have on food prices?
It will have an effect, especially considering that the fuel prices are going up as well. Yesterday have gone up, and remember that farmers are using a lot of fuel in their production.
All right, Hamlet, thanks so much indeed for your insights. Thank you for coming through.
Thank you, Peter.
All right, fantastic. Okay, motorists, consumers, commuters,